Okay, this next section here, we're going to talk a lot about the specifics, things like adaptation, the NEAT principle, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, carbohydrates, caloric intake, and things like that. Again, still in chapter 5, talking about food, but with food, you have to understand there comes different dynamics that take place. And we always reference the Bible, but we are living in different times now where, we have to use some wisdom here. And adaptation basically is the process by which or in which your body becomes used to what you're doing. So if you eat the same foods week in and week out, the same intermittent fasting program, the same exercises, your body will adapt to what you're doing. God designed us in such a way that long-term caloric restriction will slow down our metabolism to help us survive. So that's what people are talking about when they say, low calorie diets are a little bit dangerous. And I see that I've already elaborated on this throughout the book and the podcasts, but there is some truth to that for sure. However, sometimes you need to give it a little jump start. And so I'm a big fan of low calorie. I don't call them diets. What I do is I would say part of my health and fitness lifestyle is there will be times where I have to minimize my calories in order to achieve my goals. Or if God's put on your heart to fast, even fast for health reasons, spiritual reasons, though, of course, is the priority. We'll talk more about that later. So we are designed for our metabolism to slow down when we don't eat as many calories because the body's smart and it says, okay, well, if I'm only eating 1,500, I need to slow my metabolic rate down to some degree. And this is why people hit a plateau. They're doing good. The results are coming quickly. And then boom, they hit a plateau. So the key at this case is not to eat less, but to maybe to eat less often. And what would be hard for me to do right now is when it comes to plateaus or adaptation, when your body adapts, is to tell you, here's exactly what you need to do. Because I don't know you. I don't know your situation. What I would do is probably maybe have days where I eat more calories, and kind of adjust it that way. And then also there would be days maybe where I would try to exercise more, walk more. Remember, the biggest way to lose weight is not by exercise, believe it or not, although exercise is good. The best way to lose weight is monitoring the type of food you're eating. And that's why, those who have the carnivore type diet approach seem to have great results because they're getting satisfied. They don't have to eat as much. Their body's in a ketogenic state. And so if they hit a plateau, it's going to be different advice than someone else who's doing a keto diet or a plant-based diet. So it really depends upon your situation, but you need to know that hitting a plateau and adaptation are normal. Your body is adapting. So you're going to have to switch some things around. Maybe start to eat a little bit more. Maybe one day do a water fast. Next day eat some more and just switch things around so your body's kind of guessing and it's not set in this pattern. And then what I talked about before is the NEAT principle. One way to lose weight without much effort can be found in the non-exercise activity thermogenesis principle, which people call NEAT. It refers to the amount of energy burned for everything that we do in the course of a day. Basically everything that's not sleeping, eating, or sports-like exercises. It ranges from the energy expended. I should reread that. Sorry. It refers to the amount of energy burned for everything we do that is not sleeping, eating, or sports-like exercise. Okay. So this is the amount of energy a person just burns like while I'm sitting here. If I'm more fidgety, and I think I've already went over this, so I don't want to spend too much time here, but more fidgety, active, I'm kind of up and down versus a person who's constantly sitting on the couch a lot or really just kind of laid back. A laid back person is usually more overweight, where a high strung person is often not. And that's because of this NEAT principle. And I mean, even, we talked about how many calories a person can burn, extra. It's amazing. So what I would do is NEAT doesn't have to do with exercise, but you can increase your activity. You cannot sit as much. You can stand and work. You can have your watch go off every hour to go take a walk. There's ways to start increasing the movement of your body. And that basically is what has to happen. So let's talk about food choices and caloric intake since we're on this topic of food. When your body is short on energy, which is calories, it will draw from other sources for that energy. Your body will feed on stored tissue, such as fat tissue. Although I encourage seasons of fasting, starvation diets fail because they deplete the body of the needed energy source. Again, many diet books skip around the calorie issue, saying that it's not necessarily important. You don't have to worry about them. But I can truly say, had I not kept an eye on my caloric intake, I would not have lost a significant amount of weight. Again, I'm writing back when I lost more weight than I have recently. It really mattered. But, some people do, again, carnivore or keto, and they don't have to monitor caloric intake. And you don't want to get in the habit of that because it can become a form of dieting. It can be really, it can become an obsession. But I think it's okay to say, hey, listen, for example, I've got my, my phone out here, and I'm going to have in my calculator, and I'm going to put in, let's see, for today, so far I'm at 500 calories. And so I will log that, and then I know I have another, 1,000 to go for the day. And then I'll log that. And so it's just a process of logging your calories, your energy, the different, some people, they put in how much exercise they did, how much they burned in the course of just a long walk. And then they'll also have an app that tracks calories. I don't get too technical. I mean, it's good if you want to, but the best thing to do is to have an idea of how many calories you want to take in. Again, all this based on what I've been talking about. Again, I don't want to repeat a lot of it, but find out, what is your goal? Keto, carnivore, plant-based. I would do more of a whole plant-based food diet, a little bit of meat here and there, and really just get some health into my body. I would, not eat after 4 p.m., 5 p.m. the latest. And I would do these little things, and it really makes a huge difference. And so when we talk about calories, it's something that I think is important for us to realize is that it's a unit of energy. So we do have to be careful, especially with nuts and things like that. But a lot of times what happens is something called the fear factor. And here's what I wrote. Through my experience in the fitness industry, I have found that many who begin a weight loss program do so because of fear. Fear of an early death, failing health, the onset of cancer, or other health-related illnesses. A high percentage of those I talk with also begin a weight loss routine because they're already experiencing health problems. How sad that exercise and eating correctly are the last resort when they should be the first resort. So guys, some of you guys can jump on this sooner versus later. Many of our nation's diseases are related to nutrition. We know that now. I can say that without a doubt that at present, poor nutrition is one of America's deadliest habits. It's a constant battle. It's a constant challenge because it's always before us. The American diet is socially acceptable, and the effects of poor nutrition in many cases are not recognized for some time. Unfortunately, we are unaware and unconcerned until our health is in jeopardy. What a sad commentary on the lifestyle of a nation that God has given us such great potential to live in the blessings of God. I cannot stress enough the importance of ridding your lifestyle of things that are detrimental to your health, especially for the next generation. I heard it said even this week that this generation, our kids, are going to be maybe throughout history, the only generation that will not outlive their parents because of this sick culture we have created. So let's quickly review the basics. Stick to organic, whole foods whenever possible, God-given food in moderation. It's a simple list because make a simple list because you can get too bombarded with what's this and what's that. The majority of the things in the aisle at the store are not really good for you. You got to shop on the outside, the meat, the dairy. Again, this is so hard because there's so many rabbit trails I could take. I don't think just pasteurized normal milk is that great. or dirty meat. I mean, we've got to be real specific. I'd rather see a person eat some really good, organic beans, soak in water, get their protein from that the majority of their time. But the less complicated your lifestyle is, the more control you will have. So this is key. The less complicated your lifestyle is, the more control and the more success you will have. So what do I mean by that? You have the meals planned out to some degree. I even meal prep the night before. I have my whole day, sometimes 2 days ready. You got the chicken, you got the salad, you got the beans. It's just quick. That's true fast food, by the way. And again, although we err on the side of trying to do everything, good, don't beat yourself up. I ate a bad meal today, or I had some cookies. Well, yeah, most of us do. You get back on track. And now let me talk to you briefly about this topic of carbohydrates, because it is, even the definition, if you look up the definition, it'll just tell you that it's the main source of energy for the body. And it is. Fat for a while was the bad guy. I don't know if protein's been the bad one. Well, I guess it is the bad guy in some, depending on who you read, increasing mTOR and things like that, mammalian target of rapamycin. That has to do with increased cell proliferation. But for the most part, fats and then carbohydrates are the bad guy. And we got to watch them for sure. Anything's a bad guy if you don't watch it. Even fat, too much fat, I believe, in my personal opinion, I just don't feel as good. You look at how we were created. An egg, right? Perfect amount of protein. It's got the yolk. It's got the cholesterol. God knows what he's doing. You've got a ribeye. The ribeye comes with protein and fat. And look at how nature has done this. Look at how God has created us. So calories, as we talked about, it's a unit of energy from food. And the energy comes from three main sources. I'm going to do a crash course here real quick. Carbohydrates, fats, which are essential for life-sustaining functions, and proteins, which are used for building blocks and repairing tissue. I've heard that actually carbohydrates aren't even really essential. And we could flesh that out for a little bit, depending on, your body breaking down muscle or fat for gluconeogenesis, and it could create its own glucose from carbohydrates. So maybe, but carbohydrates are currently at the forefront of most diet discussions. They consist of foods that originate from the ground, like potatoes, whole grains. If you can get true whole grains, some fruits, vegetables, beans, things like that. And then you have foods developed by man, which is mainly 99% of our problem. The reason is it's cheap, it's affordable. They make a lot of money off them, and you can, look into this yourself. I know a lot of the tobacco companies went into the food industry once cigarettes, kind of plummeted, and they have scientists that will actually design the food to keep you hooked. You're not going to eat too many avocados. I've never eaten too many strawberries. I've came close on watermelon. But just too much salad, never. But you give me some Lay's potato chips or Doritos, it's like, you can eat 4 times the amount of calories. It's just amazing. And that is why, because it's an addiction. So those developed by man, the processed food, of course, the soft drinks, pastries, white flour products, all those things we want to avoid. Our bodies were designed to consume healthy, God-originating carbohydrates, especially if you are very active. And again, remember, we got to use wisdom. Back in the Bible times, they walked a lot. And so obviously, I would think they would have a lot more carbohydrates. Ezekiel 4:9. I love Ezekiel bread. It says, take for yourself wheat and barley and beans and lentil and millet and spelt and make bread. And that's what Ezekiel bread attempts to do. And then we are further encouraged to let our moderation be known to all men. The key word is moderation. Eat moderately, and keep in mind that even healthy foods should be consumed in moderation. So again, back to the carbohydrate discussion. I'm not going to get into it because I have been getting into this the whole book. But for those of us who wanting to lose weight, you do have to be very careful of your insulin sensitivity. What I mean by that is when you eat carbohydrates, it will raise blood sugar levels. And then as a response, insulin is increased. And insulin is a fat storage hormone. So we want to keep that at bay as much as possible. Not only that, if you become insulin resistant, right, your cells are resistant to insulin, you've got to take the insulin, type 2 diabetes. in order to pump more insulin into the cell and to accomplish what it needs to accomplish. And then therefore fat storage it's almost, I haven't seen too many people get in shape and lose weight when they're on type 2 diabetes medication. It's hard because it's very, very counterproductive. So after carbohydrates are consumed, here's the key. They're broken down into glucose, and here's what happens. The glucose either serves an immediate need. So you see these guys running, 26-mile marathons, then they are going to use that glucose very quickly. So they can drink a whole bunch of sugary drinks, which I normally wouldn't recommend. But for them, they can do that because they're burning it right away. Or it can assist in recovery. There's a big debate right now. Should I eat right afterwards? What should I eat? The experts are divided. I know for me, like getting up in the morning, it's probably, breaking a fast. It's good to break it with some protein. And I would say, even after, depends on how long you exercise, but maybe give it some time before you eat. Let that insulin sensitivity, or I shouldn't say sensitivity, I should say let the drop in insulin and blood sugar, ride that out as long as you can. If possible. But then others say, no, you need protein right away for recovery. It depends, again, what kind of exercise you did, your goals. I mean, this is rocket science. It is kind of hard depending on, the different needs of the people out there. So let's say if there's no immediate need, then the glucose, the carbohydrates are stored in the muscle and in the liver for future use. Now, if the liver and muscle are full, sorry about that, later in the afternoon here. If the liver and your muscle are already full of glycogen, that's why when you eat, or work out and you have glycogen, they call it a glycogen pump, your muscles are pumped. And also when you stop fasting, when, a lot of people get really depressed because they're like, Shane, I gained 8 pounds back after I fasted. I lost 15. I already gained 8. Yeah, that's normal actually, because you'll lose 15 pounds of fat. You lose probably about 7 or 8 pounds of fat. And then you're losing the fiber content that's the gut, the stuff that's in your gut. And then your muscles will lose the hold of all the water it's holding. So when you gain, 5, 6, 7, 8 pounds back, that's to be expected. It should be encouraged because you're filling out again from the fast. Now, you don't want to keep filling out. You want to get that under control and do everything we talked about in the book and keep those results going. So if the liver and muscle are full, as they usually are in the American lifestyle here that we live, the glucose will be converted into fat and stored for future use. So that's what's happening in our country. We are not using the energy we are consuming. The storage capacity in the liver is rather small, and it's used to supply energy to the brain and central nervous system, whereas the storage capacity in the muscle is larger. So more muscle means more storage capacity. So for example, let's say I weigh 210 pounds versus me weighing 180 pounds. And let's just hypothetically say 30 pounds of muscle. I can eat a lot more carbohydrates because I'm going to retain that glucose, hold on to that glucose in my body. I think the body holds around 2,400 calories from glucose stored. So we're looking at 600 grams of carbohydrates that your body can store. So the first and second process are the most ideal, right? You burn the carbohydrates or you store them. But the third one is where we keep getting in trouble. On average, individuals within our culture consume way too many calories, mainly from refined sugar. Whether it's a candy bar or even a protein bar, it's still sugar. So begin decreasing this rapidly if possible. I know there might be withdrawals, but begin weaning off the types of sugars that are not good. Maybe a little bit of honey's okay, and just but I would look in your ketchup, look in your bread, look in your barbecue sauce, it's just sugar is everywhere, and that is to me they're empty calories. But the problem is many blame all carbohydrates on our nation's weight loss problem, and as a result, low carbohydrate diets have become popular. Again, I won't go into detail, but I do see the benefits of watching carbohydrates. For sure. I just think, sweet potatoes, some brown rice, things like that are definitely good from time to time. Again, we talked about adaptation. It's good to switch things up. I would never limit someone to like meat only. for the rest of their life. You've got to mix things up. I think that's also how we were created, with different seasons in life. And on this topic of carbohydrates, I'm just going to go briefly here because it's not that big of a deal, in the sense that you don't need to know a lot about this, even though if you do, I think it's good. And we've already talked about some of it. But the glycemic index, you've been hearing a lot of. That's why you do want to just avoid foods like, white bread, sugar. There's even things like white rice. And you can research if you'd like. I think I have some examples in my book. Again, you can download. I'm reading the book, What Works When Diets Don't. Oh, I forgot to do this today, so you can see the book. What works when diets don't? Find out what works, what doesn't, and why. You can download this book right now, free of charge, at at westsidechristianfellowship.org, westsidechristianfellowship.org. It might give you some more examples in there if you really need some help in here. But the GI, which is the glycemic index, it's a chart that demonstrates how fast certain carbohydrates enter the bloodstream. So you want, if I have some white rice, it's going to enter the bloodstream quickly. It's going to spike glucose and insulin. But if I mix a little bit of avocado with that white rice, it's a much slower approach. That's why you do want to eat some fats a lot of times with the majority of the food you eat. Then there's something called the glycemic load. I won't get into details about that, but it has to do with the amount of carbohydrates and different things. And glycemic, if it's high in the glycemic index, the long-term consequences are not good. It promotes high insulin. So think of the Wonder Bread. Remember the white Wonder Bread, rice, sugar, pastry, crackers. I mean, that's why we have the problem we have in our country right now. So we're going to stop on this section because the next one I want to dive into and talk a little bit about, because it's going to help a lot of people when it comes to dining out, how to eat out, how often to eat out, how do I pick the right restaurant? So we'll talk about that in the next section. I will tell you this, it's not easy, especially in the time we live with the refined oils, the extra amount of carbohydrates, the tons of sugar, the flavoring agents. It's definitely an area where we need to be wise. So we'll hit that next.